The ice beneath Europa Station Beta groaned, a deep resonance that Commander Sarah Hayes had learned to interpret over her 15 months stationed on Jupiter's frozen moon. This wasn't the normal settling of the massive structure. This was something else. "Dr. Chen," she called out, eyes fixed on the seismic readings flooding her whole screen. "Are you seeing this?" The station's lead geologist appeared at her shoulder, his breath catching as he processed the data. "These patterns, they're not natural, Commander. The frequency is too regular, too precise." Sarah nodded, her military training warring with the spark of excitement building in her chest. After months of drilling through Europa's ice shell, they'd detected something. Something that shouldn't exist. "Get me a direct line to the drilling team," she ordered, already moving toward the station's command center. "And wake up Dr. Rodriguez. If we're picking up artificial signals 3 kilometers under the ice, I want our top xenorchaeologist on hand." The next 12 hours passed in a blur of activity. The drilling team, led by the steady hand of Chief Engineer Patel, carefully adjusted their course to follow the increasingly strong signal. Every reading confirmed what Sarah had initially suspected. They weren't dealing with some quirk of geology. This was technology, buried beneath millions of years of ice. "Commander," Patel's voice crackled through the comm, tension evident even through the static. "We've reached a cavity in the ice. And there's something here. Something big." Sarah leaned forward, her fingers tightening on the edge of her console. "Define big, Chief." There was a pause, filled only by the sound of Patel's measured breathing. "It's a structure, ma'am. Crystalline in nature, but definitely artificial. And it's active. We're picking up energy readings." The command center fell silent. They'd come to Europa looking for simple organic compounds, maybe microscopic life in the moon's subsurface ocean. Instead, they'd found this. "Hold position," Sarah ordered, already reaching for her pressure suit. "I'm coming down." The descent through the narrow drilling shaft was claustrophobic, even for someone who trained for deep space missions. But as Sarah's pod emerged into the ice cavity, all thoughts of discomfort vanished. The beam of her lights caught crystalline surfaces that seemed to pulse with their own inner luminescence, creating patterns that danced across the chamber's frozen walls. The structure itself defied easy description. It rose from the ice like a geometric flower, its faceted surfaces reflecting and refracting light in ways that made Sarah's eyes water. But it was the base of the structure that drew her attention. There, half embedded in the ancient ice, was what could only be an entrance. "This is impossible," Dr. Rodriguez whispered through the comm. The xenorchaeologist had followed Sarah down in a second pod, and his voice held a mixture of awe and professional excitement. "The ice here is millions of years old. If this structure is as old, then someone was here long before Earth had even developed multicellular life." Sarah finished. She pushed off from her pod, using her suit's thrusters to maneuver closer to the entrance. "Chief, what are the structural integrity readings?" "Rock solid, Commander. Whatever this thing is made of, it's stronger than any material we've got in our database." Sarah took a deep breath, years of training and protocol warring with the historic opportunity before her. "Dr. Chen, what's the radiation reading?" "Minimal. Whatever energy source is powering this thing, it's not dangerous to our suits." That decided it. They hadn't come all this way to stare at the greatest discovery in human history from a safe distance. "Chief Patel, get a secure line to Earth. They'll want to know about this. Dr. Rodriguez, you're with me. Let's see if we can figure out how to open this thing." They'd barely reached the entrance when the surface beneath their magnetic boots began to vibrate. Lines of light, like liquid mercury, began to flow through the crystalline material. The geometric patterns shifted, rearranged, and suddenly an opening appeared where solid crystal had been moments before. "Commander," Dr. Rodriguez's voice was barely a whisper, "I don't think we need to figure out how to open it. I think it knows we're here." Sarah's hand instinctively went to the sidearm strapped to her suit, a gesture more comforting than practical. If whatever built this place meant them harm, she doubted a standard-issue plasma pistol would make much difference. "Stay alert," she ordered, taking point as they moved into the structure. "And keep recording. Everything we see here is going to rewrite human history." The interior was a maze of crystalline corridors that seemed to shift and change as they passed through them. The walls pulsed with that same inner light, but now Sarah could see that the patterns weren't random. They were moving with purpose, like data flowing through circuit paths. They'd made it perhaps 100 meters into the structure when they found the chamber. Unlike the angular geometry of the corridors, this space was perfectly spherical, its walls covered in what could only be some form of writing. Complex patterns that seemed to move and reshape themselves even as Sarah tried to focus on them. And in the center of the chamber, suspended in a column of light, was a figure. It was roughly humanoid in shape, but its body appeared to be composed of the same crystalline material as the structure itself. As Sarah and Rodriguez watched, frozen in amazement, the figure's surface began to ripple, and two brilliant points of light appeared where eyes might be on a human face. "Hello," a voice echoed in Sarah's mind, bypassing her suit's comm system entirely. "We have waited so very long for someone to find us." Sarah Hayes had trained for first contact scenarios, had run countless simulations and drills, but nothing could have prepared her for this moment. Deep beneath the ice of an alien moon, face to face with a being who had waited millions of years for this meeting. "I am Commander Sarah Hayes of the Europa Scientific Expedition," she said, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. "We come in peace, seeking knowledge." The crystalline being's surface rippled again, and Sarah had the distinct impression it was pleased. "Knowledge," it echoed in her mind. "Yes, we have much to share, and much to ask, for we are the last of the Lumini, and we need your help, Commander Hayes. The fate of 2 species may depend upon it." The next 48 hours transformed Europa Station Beta from a remote research outpost into the center of humanity's first interstellar diplomatic crisis. Sarah stood in the command center, watching as holographic representations of Earth's top officials argued over what to do about their crystalline visitors. "The security implications alone are staggering," General Roberts was saying, his hologram pacing back and forth. "An alien civilization with technology advanced enough to survive millions of years under Europa's ice? How do we know this isn't some kind of trap?" The crystalline being who had introduced itself as Nexus remained motionless beside Sarah, its surface reflecting the blue glow of the holograms. "Your caution is understandable," it projected into all their minds simultaneously. "But time grows short. The pathogen that forced us into hibernation is beginning to awaken." Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward, his usual academic reserve replaced by urgent conviction. "The Lumini have shared their historical archives with us. The pathogen they're talking about doesn't just affect their crystalline biology. It's capable of adapting to attack any form of complex life. If it reaches Earth, then humanity could face the same fate as the Lumini." Sarah finished. She turned to address the assembled holograms directly. "We're not just talking about first contact anymore. This is a potential extinction-level event." The debate raged on, but Sarah's attention was drawn to Nexus. The being's surface had developed a subtle tremor, almost imperceptible unless you knew what to look for. Over the past 2 days, she'd learned to read these minute changes in the alien's crystalline structure. This was a sign of distress. "You're feeling it already, aren't you?" she asked privately, stepping closer to the alien. "The pathogen's effects?" "Yes," Nexus responded, the thought tinged with what Sarah could only interpret as pain. "Our stasis technology is failing. Soon, all of our sleeping brethren will begin to awaken, and with them, the pathogen that drove us here." Before Sarah could respond, Dr. Chen burst into the command center, his face pale. "Commander, we're detecting unusual biological readings from the ice samples near the Lumini structure. Something's activating down there." The holographic arguments ceased immediately. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with Europa's frozen environment. How long? She demanded. At current rates of progression, maybe 72 hours before it reaches active concentrations, if it adapts to the ice bacteria as quickly as the Lumini records suggest. Then we're already in danger, Sarah finished. She squared her shoulders and faced the Earth officials. We're out of time for debate. The Lumini have offered to share their advanced technology, including their stasis and crystalline engineering capabilities, in exchange for our help developing a cure. I need an answer now. The silence stretched for what felt like eternity before the UN Secretary-General stepped forward. The potential benefits outweigh the risks. Commander Hayes, you have full authority to proceed with the cooperation agreement. But, she added, her expression grave, if there's any sign that this pathogen can't be contained. Understood. Sarah nodded. We'll need immediate evacuation protocols in place, and I want the Europa quarantine shields at maximum power. As the holograms winked out one by one, Sarah turned to her team. Dr. Rodriguez, work with Nexus to set up a translation matrix for their technical database. Dr. Chen, I want continuous monitoring of that pathogen's progression. Chief Patel, get me containment fields around every sample site. Commander, Nexus projected, its surface now showing distinct signs of strain. There is something else you should know. The reason we chose this moon, why we waited so long. We detected something unique in Earth life, a resilience, an adaptability we had never seen before. We believe your species may hold the key to fighting this threat. Sarah was about to respond when alarms began blaring throughout the station. Multiple breaches detected in ice sample containment, the AI announced. Biological contamination in sectors 7 through 12. Get me visual. Sarah ordered, rushing to the main display. The footage showed something that made her blood run cold. The ice around the sample containers wasn't just melting, it was changing, taking on an iridescent quality that reminded her too much of the pathogen descriptions in the Lumini archives. It's happening faster than we predicted, Dr. Chen said, his voice shaking. The pathogen is adapting to the local bacteria at an exponential rate. Sarah felt the weight of command settling onto her shoulders like a physical burden. They had no time for careful planning now, no time for protocols or proper procedures. New plan, she announced. We're moving all essential personnel and equipment into the Lumini structure. Its containment systems are millions of years ahead of ours. Commander, Chief Patel objected, we haven't even begun to understand their technology. Moving the entire operation in there is our only option. Sarah cut him off. Unless anyone has a better idea for containing an alien pathogen that can eat through our strongest containment fields. The silence was answer enough. As her team rushed to implement the evacuation order, Sarah turned to Nexus. The crystalline being's surface was now visibly disturbed, patterns of light racing beneath its transparent exterior. Your people are dying, she said. It wasn't a question. Yes, the stasis fields are failing faster than anticipated. Soon, all 10,000 of my sleeping kin will begin to awaken. Without a cure. Sarah straightened her spine. That's not going to happen. Humanity didn't cross the solar system to watch another species die. We're going to find a way to stop this thing together. As if in response to her words, another alarm blared. This one from the depths of the Lumini structure. The pathogen was spreading faster than anyone had predicted, and somewhere in the crystalline halls below, ancient stasis pods were beginning to fail. The race against extinction had begun. The atmosphere inside the Lumini structure was tense as Sarah supervised the emergency relocation. Scientists and technicians moved through the crystalline corridors, setting up equipment while trying to ignore the increasingly frequent tremors that shook the ancient facility. How many pods have failed? Sarah asked, watching as Dr. Chen analyzed the latest data stream. 17 so far, he replied, his face illuminated by the pulsing light of the crystal walls. But the rate of failure is accelerating. Nexus estimates we have less than 24 hours before the majority of the stasis systems collapse. A flash of movement caught Sarah's attention. Through a translucent wall, she could see several awakened lumini, their crystalline forms dulled and clouded by the pathogen's effects. Dr. Rodriguez worked alongside them, racing to decode their vast scientific archives for anything that might help create a cure. "Commander," the urgent call came from Chief Batul. "We've got a problem at the main entrance. Some of the station's security team. They're refusing to enter the structure." Sarah felt a headache building behind her eyes. She'd expected resistance. Asking people to trust their lives to alien technology was a big ask, but they didn't have time for this. "I'll handle it." She made her way to the entrance, where a group of 5 security officers stood with their weapons drawn. Lieutenant Wade, their leader, stepped forward as she approached. "Commander, this is a mistake," he said, his voice tight with barely controlled fear. "We've got reports from Earth about similar biological signatures being detected in deep ice samples worldwide. This thing is spreading, and we're walking right into its source." "The Lumini structure is our best chance at containment," Sarah countered. "It's shielding technology. Is alien tech we barely understand." Wade interrupted. "For all we know, they planned this. What better way to infiltrate Earth than to force us to rely on their technology?" Before Sarah could respond, Nexus appeared beside her, its crystalline form now showing clear signs of the pathogen's corruption. "Your fear is understandable, but misplaced," it projected. "We would not spend millions of years in stasis, watching our people slowly die, for the sake of a deception." The security team recoiled at the direct mental contact, and Wade raised his weapon. "Stay back." Everything happened in a blur. Sarah saw Wade's finger tighten on the trigger of his pulse rifle, a weapon designed to shatter crystalline structures. She saw Nexus, weakened by the pathogen, moving too slowly to dodge. And she saw the future they were fighting for about to end before it began. She didn't think. She moved. The impact felt like being hit by a shuttle. Sarah's body slammed into Nexus, pushing the alien leader aside as the pulse blast caught her squarely in the chest. She heard shouting, felt the cold of the ice floor against her back, and then everything went dark. She drifted in and out of consciousness, catching fragments of urgent conversations. Unprecedented reaction. Her cells are incorporating the crystalline structure. Never seen anything like this. When she finally opened her eyes, Sarah found herself in what had once been a Lumini medical chamber. Dr. Rodriguez stood nearby, his face a mixture of concern and barely contained excitement. "What happened?" She tried to ask, but her voice felt strange, resonating in a way it never had before. "Commander," Rodriguez said carefully, "you need to stay calm. The pulse blast should have killed you, but something extraordinary happened. Your body, it's adapting, incorporating Lumini biological elements." Sarah tried to sit up and caught a glimpse of her reflection in a crystalline surface. Her skin had taken on a subtle, translucent quality, with faint patterns of light moving beneath the surface. "How is this possible?" she asked, but even as the words left her mouth, she knew. The Lumini had chosen Earth, had waited millions of years, because they detected something unique in human biology. They hadn't just been looking for help, they'd been looking for compatibility. Nexus appeared in the doorway, its form somehow steadier than before. "Now you understand," it projected. "Your species' extraordinary adaptability, combined with our crystalline biology, it may be the key to everything. The cure we've been searching for." Dr. Chen burst into the room, his tablet displaying a cascade of data. "Commander, you need to see this. Your transformed cells, they're not just resistant to the pathogen, they're actively fighting it, and the effect seems to be transferable." Sarah looked down at her altered hands, watching the play of light beneath her partially crystalline skin. What had seemed like a crisis was transforming into an opportunity, but the implications were staggering. "The security team?" she asked, remembering what had led to this moment. "Under guard," Rodriguez assured her. "But Commander, Wade's actions, as misguided as they were, may have given us our first real hope. If we can understand how your transformation happened, if we can replicate it, then we might have a way to save both our species, Sarah finished. She stood, marveling at how natural her altered body felt. How many lumini are still in stable stasis? Just under 9,000, Nexus provided. But we lose more with each passing hour. Sarah straightened, feeling strength flow through her hybrid form. Then we have work to do. Dr. Rodriguez, I want every piece of data from my transformation analyzed. Dr. Chen, start mapping the genetic compatibility markers. And Nexus. She turned to the alien leader. I think it's time we fully combined our knowledge. No more holding back from either side. As her team rushed to comply, Sarah caught another glimpse of her reflection. The person, the being, looking back at her was neither fully human nor lumini, but something new, something that might represent the future of both species. The race against time had become a race toward evolution itself. The Lumini medical chamber had become a hive of activity. Sarah watched as human scientists worked alongside crystalline beings, their efforts illuminated by the bioluminescent patterns that now flowed through her own partially transformed body. The integration is remarkable, Dr. Chen muttered, studying a holographic display of Sarah's cellular structure. The crystalline matrix isn't just coexisting with your human cells, it's enhancing them. Your cellular repair rate is off the charts. Sarah flexed her hand, watching light ripple beneath her translucent skin. Can we replicate it? That's the complicated part, Rodriguez interjected, gesturing to another set of readings. Your transformation was catalyzed by the combination of the pulse blast's energy signature and your direct contact with Nexus at the moment of impact. It created a unique fusion we're still trying to understand. A tremor ran through the structure, stronger than previous ones. In the distance, Sarah could hear the distinctive sound of another stasis pod failing. Through her new connection to the Lumini consciousness, she felt the echo of pain as another of their people succumbed to the pathogen. We're running out of time, she said, pushing herself to her feet. Her new body felt stronger by the hour, but the responsibility weighing on her seemed to grow even faster. What about the pathogen itself? Any progress on understanding how it works? Dr. Chen brought up a new display, this one showing the molecular structure of the hostile organism. It's like nothing we've ever seen. It doesn't just attack cells, it rewrites them. That's why it's so adaptable, able to jump between such different forms of life. But that adaptability might be its weakness, a new voice projected. Nexus approached, its crystalline form now showing signs of recovery. Proximity to Sarah's hybrid biology seemed to strengthen the Lumini, lending credence to their theories about compatibility. What do you mean? Sarah asked, though part of her already knew the answer, could feel it in the new awareness that hummed through her transformed cells. The pathogen succeeds by forcing rapid evolution in its hosts, Nexus explained, its thoughts carrying complex layers of scientific understanding that Sarah's enhanced mind could now process. But your transformation represents an evolutionary leap it couldn't predict. Your hybrid cells aren't just resistant. They're actively hostile to the pathogen's attempt at manipulation. Because I chose the change, Sarah realized. It wasn't forced evolution, it was willing adaptation. Rodriguez snapped his fingers, excitement breaking through his usual academic reserve. That's it. The pathogen fails when faced with deliberate evolutionary choices rather than random mutations. Commander, your transformed tissue isn't just fighting the infection. It's teaching other cells how to resist. Another tremor shook the facility, this one accompanied by warning lights pulsing through the crystalline walls. Chief Patel's voice came through the comm system, tense with urgency. Commander, we've got multiple breaches in the outer sectors. The pathogen is eating through the ice faster than we can track it. At this rate, it'll reach the subsurface ocean within hours. Sarah felt her heart sink. Once the pathogen reached Europa's vast underground ocean, there would be no containing it. The moon's internal currents would spread it throughout the solar system. What about the others? She asked. The security team. The rest of the station's personnel. Most have accepted the situation, Paddle reported. After seeing your transformation, well, it's hard to maintain paranoia in the face of living proof. But, Commander, even if we perfect a treatment based on your condition, we don't have time to synthesize enough for everyone. Sarah turned to Nexus, an idea forming in her mind, one that her new hybrid consciousness told her might just work. The stasis pods that are failing. They're not just storage units, are they? They're meant to facilitate deep biological change over time. Yes, Nexus confirmed. Our ancestors designed them to allow our people to adapt to new environments during long-term space travel. But in their current state, they're too unstable to use. Maybe not, Sarah said, moving to a console and letting her transformed hands interface directly with the crystalline technology. Dr. Chen, what if we repurposed the pod's transformation protocols? Instead of slow adaptation over millions of years, we program them for rapid, directed change based on my hybrid template. Rodriguez's eyes widened as he followed her logic. The pods would become transformation chambers, but Commander, the energy requirements would be enormous. And there's no guarantee the process would work the same way for everyone. It's better than watching both our species die, Sarah countered. She turned to address the entire chamber. Listen up. I need every pod that's still stable prepped for reprogramming. Dr. Chen, work with the Lumini biotechnology experts to map my cellular changes. Rodriguez, start calculating power requirements. If we can save even a fraction of our people, give them the ability to fight this thing. She trailed off as a new sensation washed over her. Through her connection to the Lumini consciousness, she felt something stirring deep beneath the ice, ancient machinery awakening in response to her hybrid commands. There's more, she said slowly, letting the knowledge flow through her transformed mind. The Lumini didn't just build this facility for storage. It's part of a larger network, designed to seed compatible life forms throughout the solar system. If we can get the cure working, we might be able to use that network to distribute it. Nexus's form pulsed with what Sarah now recognized as hope. Yes, but accessing those systems requires a perfect fusion of human and Lumini biology. Until now, such a thing seemed impossible. Sarah looked around the chamber at the determined faces of both species working together, then down at her own transformed hands that represented the bridge between them. Nothing's impossible, she said firmly. We just haven't figured out how to do it yet. Deep beneath Europa's ice, Sarah Hayes stood before an ancient control interface that hadn't been touched by conscious thought in millions of years. Her transformed body resonated with the crystalline technology surrounding her, patterns of light flowing between her hybrid flesh and the living architecture of the Lumini facility. The network is responding, she projected, still marveling at her ability to communicate in the Lumini way. But there's damage. A lot of it. Nexus moved beside her, its own form strengthened by proximity to her hybrid energy. The pathogen's previous attack forced our ancestors to shut down the distribution systems before they could be corrupted. Reactivating them now could give us a way to save everyone, Sarah finished, or expose the entire solar system to infection. She felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her altered consciousness. The transformation pods they'd reprogrammed were working, successfully converting willing volunteers into hybrids, but the process was too slow to save everyone. Dr. Chen's voice crackled through what remained of the human communication system. Commander, the pathogen has reached the subsurface ocean. We're detecting exponential reproduction rates in the native bacteria. Once it adapts to that ecosystem, it'll be impossible to contain, Sarah finished. She straightened, decision made. Everyone fall back to the inner chambers. We're activating the network. Commander, Chief Patel objected. The structural integrity of the outer sections is failing. If we lose containment before the cure is distributed, then we fail trying to save everyone instead of watching helplessly while both our species die. Sarah cut him off. She turned to Rodriguez, who was working furiously at a modified console. Status of the hybrid transformation pods. 32 successful conversions so far, he reported. Each new hybrid is showing the same resistance to the pathogen as you, Commander. But without the distribution network, we can't produce the cure fast enough. Sarah nodded, then reached out to interface directly with the ancient machinery. Through her enhanced senses, she could feel the vast network of crystalline structures spanning the solar system. Dormant nodes waiting in the ice of Saturn's rings, buried deep in Mars' polar caps, hidden in asteroid cores throughout the belt. The Lumini didn't just visit Earth, she realized, the knowledge flowing through her hybrid mind. They seeded backup facilities throughout the solar system, waiting for compatible life to evolve. Yes, Nexus confirmed. We knew the pathogen might one day return. This network was our failsafe, a way to distribute an evolutionary cure across the entire system. But activating it requires both Lumini crystalline technology and human adaptability. It requires you, Sarah Hayes. Another tremor rocked the facility, this one strong enough to shatter several unused stasis pods. Through the crystalline walls, Sarah could see the ice taking on the telltale iridescent sheen of pathogen corruption. "How do we do this?" she asked, pushing aside her fear to focus on the task at hand. "You must connect fully with the network," Nexus explained. "Your hybrid consciousness will serve as the bridge, allowing us to distribute the cure through the ancient channels." But it hesitated. "The energy requirements will be enormous. The strain on your transformed biology could kill me," Sarah finished. She felt rather than saw her team's reaction to this revelation. "But if we do nothing, everyone dies anyway." She turned to address the assembled humans and Lumini. "Get everyone into secure positions. Once we activate the network, I don't know exactly what will happen." Her eyes met Dr. Chen's. "If this works, make sure Earth understands what happened here. Make sure they know this was a choice. Humanity and Lumini working together by choice, not by force." Before anyone could object, Sarah plunged her consciousness into the network. The sensation was overwhelming. Millions of years of dormant technology awakening at her hybrid command. She felt the pathogen too, its mindless hunger spreading through Europa's ocean. But now she could see the pattern of its adaptation, understand its fundamental weakness. The cure wasn't just in her transformed cells. It was in the very act of willing change, of conscious evolution. As her hybrid consciousness expanded through the network, Sarah began to broadcast not just the biological solution, but the understanding behind it. Pain lanced through her transformed body as the ancient machinery drew more and more energy. Through fragmenting awareness, she felt the network responding. Crystalline structures throughout the solar system awakening, broadcasting the cure in waves of deliberate evolution. "Commander," Rodriguez's voice seemed to come from very far away. "Your cellular structure is destabilizing. You have to pull back." But Sarah wasn't finished. She could feel the pathogen attempting to adapt, to overcome the cure, but her hybrid consciousness stayed one step ahead, adjusting the evolutionary frequencies faster than the hostile organism could respond. This was why the Lumini had waited for humanity, not just for their biological compatibility, but for their incredible adaptability, their ability to face change head-on and embrace it. Just when she thought her transformed body would tear itself apart from the strain, Sarah felt new presences joining her in the network. The other hybrids, led by Nexus, were linking their consciousness with hers, sharing the overwhelming load. Through their combined awareness, she felt the pathogen beginning to fail. Not just in the immediate facility, but throughout Europa's ocean, throughout the entire solar system. The cure was working, spreading through the ancient network, offering every compatible life form the chance to adapt rather than succumb. When Sarah finally opened her eyes, she found herself lying on the floor of the control chamber, surrounded by concerned faces both human and Lumini. Her hybrid body felt different, changed again by the enormous energy she had channeled. "Did it work?" she managed to ask. Dr. Chen's face broke into a wide smile. "Better than we could have hoped. The pathogen is breaking down everywhere we can detect it. The cure is self-replicating through natural biological processes now. Nothing will be able to stop its spread." And the changes? Sarah asked, looking at her hands, which now seemed to be an even more perfect blend of human and crystalline attributes. Stable, Rodriguez reported, scanning her with modified equipment. You've evolved again, Commander. We all have. Whatever you did through that network, you didn't just distribute a cure. You opened the door for a whole new kind of human evolution. Sarah stood with help from Nexus, feeling the strength returning to her transformed body. Through the crystalline walls, she could see the corruption in the ice beginning to recede, replaced by healthy, hybrid-enhanced life. Not human evolution, she corrected. Our evolution. Lumini and human together, as equals. The next step for both our species. She turned to face the assembled crews. Human, Lumini, and the growing number of hybrids who represented their shared future. We came to Europa looking for simple life, for proof that we weren't alone in the universe. Instead, we found something far greater, a chance to become more than either of our species could be alone. Through the restored network, Sarah could feel similar transformations beginning throughout the solar system as the cure spread, offering both species a chance at a new future. The Lumini would no longer need to hide in stasis, and humanity's drive to explore and adapt would have an entirely new frontier to tackle. There will be challenges, Nexus projected, its thoughts reaching everyone present. Not everyone will accept these changes easily. But together, Sarah finished, there's nothing we can't overcome. After all, that's what humans do best. Face the impossible and find a way forward. And now we have partners worthy of that journey. As if in response to her words, the crystalline walls pulsed with new energy, and Sarah felt the ancient machinery settling into new patterns, preparing for whatever challenges the future might hold. Above them, Europa's ice began to heal, and throughout the solar system, two ancient species took their first steps toward a shared destiny among the stars.